Hi, it's Dr. Darnise coming to you with another installment of Religion 101, The Basics. Welcome to my channel. I hope you will like, share, and subscribe if it all helps you, teaches you something that you didn't know before, something that you feel like you can share with people you know. I'd appreciate it. I'm a religion scholar, and I've decided to share some of what I actually teach in my classes here at my university. Um, yeah, I decided to do this because a friend of mine pointed out, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of questions people have, and they don't know where to go. So I decided, I teach this stuff in class all the time. I just didn't think that I'd put it on YouTube. So what I'm doing is Religion 101, the basics. Go back and check out some of the other ones that I've been doing. And today I'm gonna talk about Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Jews, Christians, and Muslims are cousins, so to speak. Um, these religious groups are people of the book, is the term that we use, meaning that we share a common history, we share a common patriarch, ancestor, and that would be Abraham. So if you're not familiar with the Bible at all, this might be a little bit puzzling to you, but if you are, you'll recall this from the book of Genesis. So if you're not familiar, I'm going to refer you to the book of Genesis. Yes, there's a bit of homework because I really can't teach you, everything in a video. And I try to keep them to 10 minutes or less, and that's already a challenge. But even in 10 minutes, what can I can't give you the full story. So I'm going to refer you to the book of Genesis in the Bible and ask you to read about Abraham as God's chosen leader, God's chosen prophet, kind of right from the beginning, where God uh, recognizes Abraham's faithfulness because he was willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. He didn't actually have to do it, but he was put in a position where he thought he was going to have to sacrifice his son Isaac, and he was willing to follow God's direction as a matter of faith, no matter what, even if it was going to cost him dearly the life of his son Isaac. He was willing to do it. So God steps in and says to Abraham, no, you don't actually have to do that, but you have shown your faith. You've shown your faithfulness. And because of that, I will, bless you and make your name great and increase the number of your descendants on the face of the earth. So this is recorded, as I said, in Genesis, which is the Old Testament, the Hebrew text. All of that is Judaism. So there you have the story of the Jewish people right there. And eventually, what happens is Christianity comes along because the man Jesus of Nazareth, who was Jewish, was a reformer, a revolutionary, and a reformer in his day, much later after the Old Testament. And people who became Jesus followers plugged into into Judaism. They either were Jews who believed Jesus was the Messiah, or they were people who converted. They had been, pagan, that is practicing some other religion other than Judaism, and they found some truth in what Jesus had been talking about, often through the apostles who had been with Jesus, or through Paul, the Apostle Paul, who had not been with Jesus personally, but who has written more than half of the New Testament. So people could find their way to Jesus through the teachings of those who came immediately after Jesus. Well, Jesus being a Jew, um, he also is from the lineage of Abraham. So you will have Jews and Christians as having a common ancestor in Abraham, the patriarch. So those are cousins. Then you have the Muslims who come along in the 6th century through the Prophet Muhammad. And you might say, well, how does he fit in? This is a whole other Prophet Muhammad. Well, the Muslims trace their ancestry again back to Abraham because Abraham had 2 sons. And his first son, Ishmael, was delivered to him through his slave or his wife's slave, Sarah. Sarah was his wife, and through her slave, Hagar, Abraham had his first son, Ishmael. And the Muslims claim their lineage through Ishmael. Again, this is biblical. This is the story of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So if you go back into the scripture and read Genesis, it will give you a foundation for these three, the lineage for these religions. And then as you read the New Testament, you'll see how Paul weaves back into the Old Testament, weaves back into Judaism for his communities of people, brings people who are not Jewish into an understanding about what Judaism was because they're following this man Jesus who was Jewish and following this notion of what it is to be part of this community as a Jesus follower. Do I have to become a Jew in the formal sense of the word? Do I have to take on the dietary restrictions? Do men have to be circumcised? I mean, everything that it meant to be a Jewish person at that time, Paul was basically explaining to his people who were largely not Jewish. So his community of people were kind of confused about what it is they were stepping into. And so Paul does a pretty excellent job. He's a great theologian. Paul does a great job of explaining how it is that these people who were Greeks, Romans, non-Jews, how they could understand themselves to be part of God's family being the Jews and the chosen people. And so, again, we get back to Abraham, the common patriarch. Because Paul is such a clever Jewish theologian, he's able to wrap in those who are not Jewish into the story so that they can be Christian, right? Because Paul is really helping to lay the foundation for the theology of Christianity. And he's masterful at that. People have their problems with Paul and various things that he did create as a theologian. But you kind of have to give it to him that he was very masterful at creating theology for people to understand and join. You know, they joined a movement that they really didn't know anything about, but because of Paul, they were able to understand this movement and say, yes, I want to be part of it. And he explained it to them in such a way to say that, no, you don't have to be Jewish first. I'm going to show you how, through Christ, you're in the family. Okay, so that's how Christianity sort of plugs into the Jewish stream. Christianity is kind of Judaism. It's a different understanding of Judaism. It's a Judaism that says that we believe that Jesus is Messiah. The notion of Messiah is a Jewish concept. God's chosen man who will come to the earth and create justice and righteousness on earth. That was the Jewish notion of what a Messiah was. And so by the time Jesus comes along and people say, oh, Jesus is the Messiah, most Jews at the time said, no, he wasn't. But those who followed him believed he was. And so that created enough of a difference that created a whole new religion called Christianity. So again, though, Christianity is based on, its history is Judaism. Okay, so that's how you get Judaism and Christianity being so close together. Jesus is a Jewish person standing on Jewish history and tradition and belief. But of course, he was a reformer. Then Paul later on brings in people who are non-Jews into that tradition. And then Christianity went on to proliferate and expand around the globe. Now, in the 6th century, we meet Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, in Arabia, and that may seem so far away and foreign and so far after the Old Testament time, or even the time of early Christianity. But again, as I said, the Muslims understand themselves to be part of the blood lineage from Abraham himself. And they're right in that regard because their ancestor Ishmael was Abraham's first son. So, yeah, I don't want to go too much further in this particular video about that because I just wanted to clarify that point. I'll probably do some more taking off from that point, but it's important that people understand just that basic little nugget of how it is Jews, Christians, and Muslims are related. And so as we have all this strife in different parts of the world, it's like family infighting. It really is. It's like family infighting. And it's unfortunate because, as I've said before, religion is the most misunderstood topic on the planet. And here you have people who share a common history and foundation, and they don't understand each other. So, again, just to give you that little bit of a basis for where we'll go from here. Again, leave me a comment. Let me know what you'd like to know more about. Maybe you'd like me to expand on that. I'm happy to do it. And so until next time, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for joining me.